What's up guys, Aaron here, and today we're going to be doing a comparison and a versus video between three of the top smartphones out right now. That is the HTC One M8 that I have here on the left. In the middle we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 that is currently in an OtterBox Defender Series case. And we have the Apple iPhone 5S here on the right. Alright, so before we actually officially start the comparison, let's go over a couple of the specifications from each device. The HTC One M8 has a full metal body design with tapered edges and weighs 5.64 ounces. Now the M8 is also running Android 4.4 KitKat with Sense 6 and has a 32 gigabyte option on board, and also supports up to 128 gigabytes of storage via a micro SD card slot. And we also get 2 gigabytes of RAM here on the M8. Now we have a 5-inch Full HD 1920 by 1080p Super LCD 3 Corning Gorilla Glass 3 touchscreen display. We have a 2.3 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 quad-core CPU. And we also have a lithium polymer non-removable 2600 milliamp battery with up to 12 hours of talk time and 12.2 days on standby. Now when it comes to the camera on the M8, we have a rear 4 ultra pixel duo camera with U-focus, which changes focus after snapping a photo. We have an f2.0 aperture with a 28mm wide angle lens and 2 LEDs, which equals a smart flash. We have a front-facing 5 megapixel camera. We also have the HTC Zoe feature built in as well. And we also get 1080p video recording. Now we have dual front-facing HTC Boom Sound speakers with a built-in amplifier, which is 25% louder than the M7. Next we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. The Samsung Galaxy Note 3 has a 5.7-inch Full HD Super AMOLED display with a screen resolution of 1920 by 1080 for an effective PPI of 386. We also get Corning Gorilla Glass 3 as well. Now we have expanded memory up to 64 gigs. So if you get a Note 3 with 64 gigabytes of internal memory and add a 64 gigabyte micro SD card, you get a total of 128 gigs. Now we also have a 2.3 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 800 processor with an Adreno 330 GPU, and we also get 3 gigabytes of RAM. We have a 3200 milliamp removable battery. We also have a TouchWiz skin overlaid the top of the UI. We also get a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera with autofocus. And we also have the ability to shoot 4K video at 3840 by 2160 at 30 frames per second. And we can also shoot 1080p at 60 frames per second. Now the Note 3 also ships with Android 4.4.2 KitKat. Next up we have the Apple iPhone 5S that has a 4-inch Retina display with the resolution of 1136 by 640 for an effective PPI of 326. Now we have an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera capable of 1080p at 30 frames per second, as well as the ability to capture slow motion footage at 120 frames per second, and we also get video stabilization. We also have the very cool FaceTime option built in. We have a dual-core A7 processor with the M7 Motion coprocessor built in as well. Now, the iPhone 5S is the first phone to have a 64-bit processor built in. We get 1 gigabyte of RAM, and we also get the Touch ID fingerprint scanner built in as well. And the Apple iPhone 5S comes running iOS 7. So first off, we're going to start off with price. So the price that you're going to pay for the HTC One M8 is going to be around $600 for a 32 gigabyte model. And you can upgrade the memory here on the side with the micro SD card slot all the way up to 128 gigabytes of storage. Once again, that's going to cost you $600. Now the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, this is going to cost you $729 for a 32 gigabyte model. And you also have the option for expanded storage via a micro SD card in the back as well. Now if you have a 64 gigabyte Note 3 and you also put in a 64 gigabyte internal SD card, then that means that you're going to get 128 gigabytes total as well. So the storage is going to be equal here, although this is about $120 cheaper. Next is the Apple iPhone 5S. And the Apple iPhone 5S is going to cost you $600 for a 16 gigabyte model. So if we actually break it down into price, the Apple iPhone 5S is going to be the most expensive here. You're only getting 16 gigabytes for $600. So what it all boils down to is that the HTC One M8 is going to be the best bang for your buck at $600 for a 32 gigabyte phone. Alright, the next category is best display. Now when it comes to the best display, out of all three of these phones, I would have to say that I'd have to give that to the HTC One M8. And the reason is because it does have the most crisp looking display in my opinion out of all of these three phones. Now the iPhone 5S has a Retina display, and the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 of course is the 1080p display. And this is a 1920 by 1080p display here as well. But the difference here is that we have a pixel density of 441 pixels per square inch, making for an overall crisper phone and an overall crisper looking display. Now following right behind that would have to be the Apple iPhone 5S, has a very nice display as well, followed by the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. So just to let you guys know the pixel count on each one of these, we have a 441 pixel per square inch count on the HTC One M8. We have a 321 PPI count on the Apple iPhone 5S, and we have a 386 PPI count on the Galaxy Note 3. And the next category is going to be the best battery. And you guys probably already know which one's going to win this category, and that is the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. The Samsung Galaxy Note 3 obviously is the biggest phone here, so Samsung was able to cram a big battery in the Note 3 and is coming in at around 3200 milliamps. Now we have a 2600 milliamp hour battery on the HTC One M8, and the Apple iPhone 5S has the worst battery life out of all three here, with a rating anywhere from 15 to 1800, which is, of course, is terrible. So once again here, the winner in the battery department is going to be the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. Next up is going to be the best audio quality and best speakers. Now obviously the HTC One has the front-facing HTC Boom Sound speakers, which in my opinion, hands down, blow away both the Note 3 as well as the Apple iPhone 5S when it comes to audio. So hands down, the HTC One wins. Next up is the best user interface. Now this is extremely relative. Now a lot of people like iOS, some people like Android. So when it comes to Android, there is two different operating systems here. We have Sense 6 on the HTC One M8, and we have TouchWiz on the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. Now if you're not an iOS guy, I completely understand that. iOS is rather simple and simplistic. Some people would like to have a ton of functionality and a ton of different options, which you do get on an Android device. So I'm not a biased person at all. I like both operating systems. So as you can see, that's why I have both devices, both an iOS and Android device. So in my opinion, when it comes to the overall best user interface out of these three, I would have to say that it's pretty much a tie, in my opinion, out of the iPhone 5S and the HTC One M8. Now that's not saying that I'm not a fan of TouchWiz, which I am. I enjoy TouchWiz on top of the Note 3. But in my opinion, Sense 6 is more similar to a vanilla Android style, and the iOS 7 is just a great overhaul from iOS 6 and the previous versions of iOS. So in my opinion, it is definitely a tie between these two operating systems. So when it comes to the best user interface, I would have to say that it's a complete tie between the Apple iPhone 5S and the HTC One M8, having Sense 6 here and iOS 7. Next up is most features. Now I'd have to say that the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 is the clear winner here, having the split screen option as well as the S Pen. Now most features on the camera are awesome in my opinion. It is more feature rich than both cameras on the HTC One and the Apple iPhone 5S. We also can shoot in 4K. So if we come here and go into our camera, so you can see here we have on the top the option to go to 3840 by 2160, which is 4K. Now in my opinion, the S Pen is also a huge feature here. We get the option here of Air Command that simply shows up on the screen just by taking out the S Pen. And this is an extremely useful feature that neither of these phones have to offer as well. So when it comes to the most features, I would have to say that the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 wins that category. Next is best performance. So which phone out of these three performed the best? Now I'd have to say that in my opinion, the Apple iPhone 5S performs the best out of all these three. Now I know you're probably saying, how can that be when the processor is probably the worst, as well as the RAM is the lowest out of all of these three. We have 2 gigabytes of RAM in the HTC One M8. We have 3 gigabytes of RAM in the Galaxy Note 3. And we have 1 gigabyte of RAM in the Apple iPhone 5S. However, the Apple iPhone 5S's operating system is not heavy on the CPU at all, so it doesn't take that much power at all to run the operating system, which is why it only has 1 gigabyte of RAM and is extremely fast and fluent with that 1 gigabyte. So in my opinion, another reason why it has the best performance out of the other ones is that I get every call and every notification from my iPhone 5S. Now I have the same apps and the same emails installed on each one of these devices. The HTC One M8 is a Verizon device. The Note 3 as well as the iPhone 5S are both AT&T, so I guess that could play some type of factor in it for me. But the HTC One M8 as well as the Note 3 don't always deliver my emails, so I have to refresh my emails to actually receive both of them. The HTC One M8 does give me my emails more often than never, and I don't have to refresh it too often here. Now when it comes to the Note 3, I always seem to have to refresh the Note 3 to get an email. Now the Apple iPhone 5S, I've never missed a call and I've never missed an email. I've never missed a notification on any type of social network. So in my opinion, the overall best performance for me, that now once again, this is just for me, it might be different for you, is the Apple iPhone 5S. Now the second would have to be the HTC One M8, and third would be the Galaxy Note 3. Next is multitasking. Now there's no comparison when it comes to multitasking. Once again, the S Pen and the multi-window feature are going to be just the awesome features that just kill the other two devices. No one likes to have to change screens when it comes to multitasking. You can get true multitasking here on the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. So when it comes to the multitasking category, the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 wins that category hands down. Next up is going to be the most durable. Out of these three phones, which ones are going to withstand a drop or withstand some type of bump, scrape, or fracture in some type of way to the actual device? So first off, you can see we have the HTC One M8 here, which is made out of a solid piece of metal. And next we have the Note 3, which you can't really see the build quality because it's inside of the case, but as you guys know from Samsung devices, they are made out of, majority out of plastic. The Note 3 has a leather looking back, but it is made out of plastic still. And on the iPhone 5S, basically this is a milled piece of aluminum with chamfered edges and has a glass front as well. So to choose a winner here in this most durable category, I would have to say that the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 would probably be the most durable. Now the reason that the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 is the winner in the most durable department is that if you drop the HTC One M8 or the Apple iPhone 5S, they're gone. They're basically going to be crushed, cracked, the screen's going to be shattered, they're going to be useless. Well, maybe not useless, you could probably still use them, but I wouldn't recommend using a cracked screen at all. So surprising enough as it is to say, with the HTC One M8 and the Apple iPhone 5S having the best build quality, I would have to say that the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 wins in the most durable department. Now this next category is huge to me, and that is one thing that I don't like about each. Now it seems like every huge company that's made a flagship device has yet to make a device that is 100% perfect in every way. Now what I mean by that is there's always one flaw and one thing that's holding it back from being just an absolute blowaway and an absolute best phone on the market completely. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys what I think that one feature is out of each. Now there's probably several, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I think the biggest one or maybe two of each phone is that's absolutely stopping it from being the best phone on the market today. So let's go ahead and start off with the HTC One M8. Now the one thing that I don't like about the HTC One M8 is the camera. Now I don't know how many times a company has made a good smartphone and has just absolutely killed it and absolutely ruined their sales by making a terrible camera on the device. That is absolutely the case here with the HTC One M8. In my opinion, the camera is an absolute letdown. The front-facing camera is a 5 megapixel camera and the back is a 4 ultra pixel camera. So HTC says that the ultra pixel camera is going to let in more light, which in my opinion it really doesn't. And they also added what's known as a duo U-focus camera, which changes focuses after snapping the photo. They also have a f2.0 aperture with a 28mm wide-angle lens on the back, and they also added 2 LEDs on the back, which they're calling Smart Flash. In my opinion, this isn't an up-to-par camera. The front-facing camera, once again, is a 5 megapixel, and in my opinion, it looks better than the 4 ultra pixel in the back, which is a huge, huge fail when it comes to the camera department on the HTC One M8. Now, the HTC One M8 does have HTC Zoe, and it does have a couple cool features to the camera, but in my opinion it just doesn't produce good quality photos and video. Now I made a comparison video between the rear-facing cameras of the HTC One M8 and the Apple iPhone 5S, and I'll go ahead and have that link down below if you guys would like to see the difference between the iPhone 5S and the HTC One M8. But in my opinion, the overall crispness and clarity and the contrast look a lot more realistic on the Apple iPhone 5S. Another thing that I don't like about the HTC One M8 is I don't like the way that it rocks when I try to press on it when it's on a flat surface. Now neither the Note 3 or the Apple iPhone 5S rock side to side because they are flat devices. But the HTC One M8 does have a round design to it, and you can kind of see that roundness here. Now when it comes to actually holding it in your hand, that roundness of the edges and that tapered design is very nice to hold. It does make for a pleasurable feel in the hand, but when it comes to setting down on the table again, once again it does constantly move around, and I hate when that happens when I'm trying to type. So those are the two things that I really don't like about the HTC One M8. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about a couple things I do like about the HTC One M8. I think that the overall build quality is absolutely gorgeous here on the HTC One M8. Once again, I don't like the rounded tapered look, but I do like the overall one single piece of metal build and the screen resolution in the front panel looks absolutely crisp and clean. I don't like that it don't have a removable battery, but that's something that you got to take with the fact that it is one single piece of metal. I also extremely like the two front-facing HTC One boom sound speakers. In my opinion, that is probably one of the best features of the HTC One M8, if not the best feature, is the two front-facing speakers. Next, moving on to the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. Now, the one thing that I don't like about the Note 3 is that I don't really like how big it is. Now, I like a big phone, don't get me wrong, and I do like the Note 3, but I wish it would be a little bit smaller, maybe around the same size as the HTC One M8. Now, I know you're probably saying, well, then get the Samsung Galaxy S5. But I like the overall features of the Note series better than the S series. In my opinion, I look at the S series and the Note series kind of like Apple does the Apple iPhone 5C and the Apple iPhone 5S. In my opinion, the S series in the Samsung department, which is going to be the S5, is like buying an Apple iPhone 5C. I wouldn't want to get an Apple iPhone 5C because it doesn't have as good of specs as the iPhone 5S and it's only $100 cheaper. I feel the same way about the Note 3 and the S5. The S5 has decent specs, but the Note 3 has better specs, and it's only $100 more. So, once again, I think that the screen needs to be a little bit smaller. And the other thing that I absolutely don't like about the Note 3 that I mentioned earlier was that the notifications. I don't know what it is, if it's Samsung or if it's my actual network provider or whatever it is, but a lot of people have been telling me in the comments section that they also don't receive their notifications via email when they're supposed to. They have to refresh their emails, and I absolutely hate that when that happens. So I think the messaging problem and the big size of the Note 3 is two things that I don't really like about it. Now, a couple things that I do absolutely like about the Note 3 is going to be the battery life. The battery life on the Note 3 is absolutely awesome. I can get through 2 days no problem with a single charge. Now, having USB 3.0 is also a plus. And we also have 4K recording, so the camera can record in 4K at 30 frames per second, which in my opinion is a huge feature for a smartphone. Another huge feature in my opinion is going to be, once again, the S Pen. This sets the Note 3 apart from any other phone in my opinion. This isn't just a stylus, this is a touch-sensitive stylus that's made specifically for the Galaxy Note 3 and is tremendously sensitive and works flawlessly with the Note 3 screen. Next up, the Apple iPhone 5S. Now, one thing I don't like about the 5S is I don't like the small screen. I think Apple needs to step up the screen size already. It's been way too long since we've had a decent sized screen. A 4-inch screen still isn't going to cut it. We need something at least 4.5 inches. I wouldn't mind seeing something around 5.1, maybe 5.2 inches. And another thing that I don't like about the iPhone 5S is the battery life. The battery life, in my opinion, is horrible. I absolutely can't stand when my phone is drained out of battery and I'm only halfway through a day. I don't want to have to sit by a plug with my phone charging and wait for it to be charged up to be able to continue with my day. So, in my opinion, those are two huge things that I hate. Now, two things that I absolutely love about the iPhone 5S is I love the Touch ID fingerprint scanner. It works flawlessly every single time for me so far. Another thing that I absolutely love is that I love the build quality. The build quality is beautiful. Here it is, probably one of the best built phones, once again, alongside the HTC One M8 when it comes to build quality. The single piece of aluminum is very sleek and looks very sexy in my opinion, just like it does with the one single piece of metal here on the HTC One M8. So that is another thing that I like about the iPhone 5S. The last and final thing that I'm going to talk about the iPhone 5S is the camera. Now, it only has an 8 megapixel camera. However, the optics are made beautifully here on the iPhone 5S, which creates beautiful and awesome looking photos and video. So that is something that's very important to me when it comes to a mobile device. Now, I'm not always going to have my DSLR and Canon 60D with me, so I'm going to have to use my smartphone and mobile device to actually capture some photos. So when I capture photos, I definitely want to get the highest quality I can. Now, the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 has a 13 megapixel camera and captures awesome photos, and once again has 4K recording capabilities as well. So that is just 3 features and some huge things that I like about the Apple iPhone 5S. Next up is my overall opinion. Now, my overall opinion on these 3 devices, that I think they're all awesome phones. If you pull out any one of these 3 phones, you're definitely going to be impressing people, and people are definitely going to know that you have the latest and greatest smartphone. Now, if I had to pick one of these devices for myself, I'm currently using all 3 of them as my daily drivers. So I have all 3 of them hooked up. I found all three to be an absolute pleasure to use. Now, once again, there is some notification issues on the Note 3, and the HTC One, I just don't really like the camera on it. So I would have to go with the Apple iPhone 5S when it comes to which one I would take. Now, my second pick would have to be the Samsung Galaxy Note 3. In my opinion, all the features that it has, including the S Pen and the awesome camera that it has on it and the ability to shoot in 4K, is a definite win in my opinion. So the third choice and the last and final pick in my opinion would be the HTC One M8. So I hope this helped you out, guys. I hope this video helped to shed a little bit more light on which device does what and which one is better in what category. If you guys have any questions about any one of these three phones, be sure to drop them down in the comments section and we'll try to answer them for you. I'd like to send a big shout out to everybody who's following me here on YouTube, and I'd also like to give a big shout out to everybody who's following me on all my other social networks as well. If you haven't followed me on any other social networks other than here on YouTube, they will be linked down below. I encourage you to do so. I also have an application for iOS and Android called Review the Best that will be linked down below as well. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, now's a great time to do so. Be sure to drop a thumbs up down below. As always, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to share this video with a friend, and I'll see you guys on the next one.